I mean, you made me think about as you were discussing that sort of the when when somebody's learning martial arts for the first time, you have them practice like a bunch of katas or just different moves at that until they like learn them in a very rote fashion, and then they get to the point where they have to sort of internalize them to get to that next level of learning. But I feel like there's a different way of approaching things as well, where you take on and really address and understand, why you're doing these things, and I think that kind of that's almost a relation to Simon Sinek, getting to why. Uh,
Yeah.
when if you start with those motivations, if you start with what you're trying to achieve first, if you start with intention, then that's a more that it's a better way to get to success. You could maybe build a community if you know all of the frameworks and you can kind of follow a recipe, to do it. But
Yeah.
are you really going to create the social situation that you need to with it?
Yeah. And I think it's about like the longevity of your community and getting to the topic of like the practical stuff of, okay, designing community for contribution. You will hear from every community builder that is doing a great job out there, and some of which I have actually interviewed to dive deeper into this idea of like building community for contribution to activate user participation to like leverage basically your clients as part of your value creation engine. And one of the people I interviewed is Christina Garnett from HubSpot, and she is a big voice on advocacy.
Mhm.
And I have an issue pronouncing that word. I would say a full just
You were
disclaimer
great.
there.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
That's perfect.
And she is a big advocate on that, and she explained that like you have to build authentic relationships, and she is very big about like you have to understand where people are coming from and how they want to express love. Another example, Vivian Weidler, who spent like 8 years building the community system, the integrating community into the product development aspect of Duolingo. Duolingo, no, everyone knows Duolingo is like a case of community building. She shared how like people wanted to contribute, they just had to enable them to. So people want to get the job done for you. If they Clayton Christensen's idea of the job to be done, that like we hire or fire products to do a certain job, depending on how well they deliver a job, we hire them again, or we fire them and get something else. In community, it's like you're getting your people to do that job, which is pretty much delivering your value proposition, right? And back to Duolingo, Vivian Weiler, in conversation with me about to write that article that I'm now publishing on the CLI magazine, she's like, "Oh, people already wanted to contribute. We just had to create a system that carved a path to help them." For instance, she said people shared a sense of mission in democratizing language learning. They wanted to create to allow other people to learn their language. And in a certain way, Duolingo is such a beautiful example because everybody is an expert in their own language. Even if a normal Joe, Jane in a specific city, they are, oh, not an expert in anything, but I'm an expert in my native language. I can teach people how to speak Portuguese. And that gave people some sense of ownership, relevance, power that Duolingo allowed them to express. And it's beautiful because it's a shared sense of mission that later powers up a company worth, I forgot the number right now, but it's in the billions. And I think that harnessing that power starts from having a very foundational, very deeply rooted mission that can be shared and it's abundant enough to be shared globally. The more deeply rooted your mission is, the easier it would be for people to grasp on it and develop their own grassroots and develop it. And I think that when you start community from the end, like the golden hen or the like the shiny object of community is growth. So I find companies hiring community managers reading social media or reading word of mouth or reading advocacy program and reading ambassadorship. And how many times was I hired to run an ambassadorship program? And I was like, okay, we need to look first into operations and understand that building community is about first building the identity and the connectedness, where identity is like people, who are the people, and what's their purpose. Connectedness, it's what's the platform and what's the program that will bring them together recurrently enough to build trust. And ultimately, identity plus connectedness lead to growth. which could be people contributing to value creation, and that could become like people, your referral program. That's how they contribute. Or it could be them literally creating parts of your product, like Duolingo. Or it could be people improving your product and helping you accelerate your operation. How can I say? Streamlining your time to deliver, like ways, using community to optimize the identification of bugs faster than the internal team could. Whatever you call contribution, community in business needs to be aligned with the creation of value, and should be, if you think about the business model canvas, both in the right side and the left side of your canvas. It's in the growth, but growth results from including people in the operational aspects of your business.
Mhm.
And I know I'll give it back to you. So let me know if I'm making sense, or what questions that could direct this idea a little bit more into practice. But I think then, in a nutshell, back to the beginning, purpose is the foundation of why people will continue to contribute. And that's important, and people sometimes go directly to the growth part and miss it.
I think that's an incredible insight, and one that I think personally resonates with me in any of the consultancy work that I've done with particularly with enterprise organizations, where sometimes I think often in the most well-meaning way, you'll have a leadership team or champions of the community program want to build a growth program. They want engagement. They want growth. They haven't necessarily defined what that means in their heads yet.
Oh my God,
And
engagement.
or engagement. Yeah.
Like
And
the
they,
word.
yeah, what kind of engagement are you talking about? Right. That's always the
Exactly.
question. But when it becomes time to, like when I'm talking to organizations, a lot of times it's sort of like asking questions that kind of poke here. Does it hurt when I do this? Does it hurt when I do that? And when asking about sort of like, well, what do you think people want, from your organization? Like, how is it that they relate to you? Like, how close is it to their being? How intimate is what you're doing to their lives, to their personal identities, to what they're doing? And if I get sort of statements about like, well, we've done all the persona work, we know all that, I'm almost immediately skeptical a lot of the time, because I
Yeah.
want to ask further, like, how much have you talked to individuals? How many people have you talked to about this? How deeply or qualitatively have you talked to them? Because a lot of times, if it's just a survey, you're not going to get at the heart of what people want, because you're still framing questions that you
Your
want to.
assumptions.
Yeah, you're making some assumptions based, and your questions are reflecting your
Yeah.
assumption.